The Mello TV Evening News at 8 is brought to you by the Ministry of Health and Wellness.
Coronavirus is in Jamaica, and I know you feel scared and worried. But you can't let COVID-19 divide us. Coronavirus infects all kinds of people. It doesn't discriminate. So why should you? When someone coughs or sneezes or shows signs of the virus, tell them to call 888-1-LOVE immediately. And remember, stay 3 feet away, but don't attack or disrespect them, because we're all in this thing together. Come on, Jamaica, cut the hate and don't discriminate. Let us stand together and fight COVID-19 as one family, one nation.
Coming up in this evening's news, one new sample has tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 24 hours, taking the country's total confirmed cases to 591. Prime Minister says that the CARIFORUM states have experienced devastating impacts on health, education, culture, and trade and finance due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Still tonight, Prime Minister visits the family of Susan Bogle, the disabled woman that was killed during a joint police-military operation at her home in August Town. And the Jamaica Progressive Party has applied to the Electoral Commission of Jamaica to be registered as Jamaica's 4th political party.
Good evening, and now the news in detail. The Ministry of Health and Wellness is reporting that in the last 24 hours, one new sample has tested positive for COVID-19, taking the total of the country's confirmed cases to 591. The latest sample that has tested positive for COVID-19 is an imported case, a 27-year-old woman of a St. James address who worked with the Royal Caribbean Adventure of the Seas cruise line and recently returned to the island. Sadly, the Ministry of Health has reported that in the last 24 hours, the country has recorded its 10th COVID-19 related death. The deceased patient is an 87-year-old woman from Kingston and St. Andrew. Meanwhile, 5 more persons have recovered from COVID-19 in the last 24 hours. This takes the total number of recovered persons who have been released from isolation to 361. The country's recovery rate has moved to 61%. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says that the CARIFORUM states have experienced devastating impacts in multiple areas, including health, education, culture, trade and finance, due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We now go to Colleen May with more on this story.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness, while addressing the first ever virtual extraordinary intersessional summit of the heads of state and government of the Organization of African, Caribbean and Pacific States OACPS earlier today, said that the CARIFORUM states have experienced devastating impacts in multiple areas including health, education, culture, trade and finance due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
When we last met in Nairobi last year, we resolved to deepen and strengthen our solidarity as a group of developing states. Little did we know that only a few weeks later, the novel coronavirus would be declared a global health emergency. And then later, a pandemic, severely eroding our resilience and even reversing the hard-earned gains of sustainable development. CARIFORUM states have experienced devastating impacts in multiple areas, including health, education, culture, trade, and finance. The mainstay of most of our economies, agriculture and tourism, were hardest hit by a staggering fallout in revenue and employment. These experiences are certainly echoed across ACP states. This global crisis is a resounding call to action for nothing less than a comprehensive revision of the system of global economic governance that will promote sustainable development, even in the face of a pandemic. This includes redefining development indices, ameliorating inequalities, and addressing economic imbalance.
Prime Minister Holness said that together, the OACPS must address global inequality, unsustainable debt, and socio-economic disparities.
The pandemic has summoned increased coordinated responses from the international community. These include the UN Secretary General's launch of the COVID-19 Global Humanitarian Response Plan, requiring US $2 billion from member states to boost the global response. In Nairobi, we committed to strengthening multilateralism for development. Let us therefore engage our institutions to consider innovative solutions. The flaws in the current international financial and economic system must be remedied. The OACPS must mount a strong advocacy campaign for access to emergency liquidity support of developing countries with vulnerable economies. This will require the international financial system to facilitate the channeling of public and private credit flows into productive development capital. Together, we must address global inequality, unsustainable debt, and socio-economic disparities. In this regard, the intra-ACP collaboration, including South-South cooperation, can become an effective tool in building stronger social systems and infrastructures. Regional cooperation can also promote the reorientation of our societies to adjust to the new normal that we must now embrace. Institutions such as the Caribbean Public Health Agency have played a sterling role in instituting health protocols that have helped to minimize the spread of the coronavirus and its effects on Caribbean societies.
The Prime Minister also addressed the announcement by the European Union, who had blacklisted some of the Caribbean countries for assessed deficiencies in anti-money laundering system.
Caribbean countries noted with great concern the announcement that the EU had blacklisted some of our countries for assessed deficiencies in our anti-money laundering system. Our organization must lobby collectively to curtail the unilateral listing of our countries, which imposes further economic and financial hardships and negates efforts to build the economic resilience needed for development. Instead, we would wish to see our EU partners leverage their influence in major multilateral fora to advocate on behalf of developing countries, to have the crippling structural imbalances in the international economic system swiftly addressed, and give further support to those countries that are demonstrably making effort to comply and implement global standards.
Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Colleen May.
Thank you, Colleen. In other news, two members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, Mark Williams and Kevin Shirley, are challenging the constitutionality of their appeal being held via the Zoom online platform. The officers are contending that the Constitution stipulates that court proceedings must be held in public. Yesterday, their attorney, Hugh Wildman, filed an application to take the matter to the Privy Council almost 1 week after the Court of Appeal denied an appeal from the men against their October 2018 convictions and sentences on charges of simple larceny. The appeal was held via Zoom. However, the officers are claiming that the hearings are in breach of their constitutional rights. As part of the measures to reduce health risks associated with the coronavirus COVID-19, the justice system has introduced the use of the virtual hearings via the Zoom platform. Still tonight, the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF, is investigating the deaths of two district constables who died suddenly on Monday in separate incidents, hours after complaining of feeling ill. The JCF says the deceased officers have been identified as 42-year-old Tamara Da Costa, who was assigned to detention and courts in St. James, and 62-year-old Morris Walker, who was assigned to the Crossroads police station. Da Costa reportedly complained of feeling ill on Sunday and was rushed to the Cornwall Regional Hospital, where she was admitted, but she succumbed to her ailment hours later. Walker was found unresponsive in his barracks at the station shortly before 7 p.m. He was rushed to the Kingston Public Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. President of the District Constables Association, Damian Price, says the deaths of both officers comes at a time when the association is getting ready to launch an improvement welfare system that will make life more comfortable for members. He added that Walker, who served the force for the last 35 years, was expecting to retire in the next 2 weeks. In news from the capital, the Duhaney Park Police are probing the circumstances surrounding the death of 34-year-old Paul Miller on Harwood Drive in the Washington Gardens community that occurred yesterday. More on this story with Mello TV News reporter Killeen May.
Detectives from the Duhaney Park Police Station in St. Andrew are probing the circumstances surrounding the death of a man on Harwood Drive in the Washington Gardens community in the parish on Tuesday. The deceased has been identified as a 34-year-old Paul Miller of Canewood Drive, St. Andrew. Reports are that about 10:40 a.m., the now deceased man was sitting in a Mercedes-Benz motor car when he was approached by armed men who opened fire, hitting him several times. The police were summoned and Miller was transported to hospital where he was pronounced dead. Investigations continue into the incident. Reporting from Mello TV News, I'm Killeen May.
Thank you, Killeen. Still in the capital, the police are investigating the fatal shootings of 36-year-old Damar Francis and 25-year-old Robert Clark, said to be brothers, that took place in August Town, St. Andrew this morning. More on this story with our reporter Brianna Chambers.
Police are investigating the shooting death of two men said to be brothers in August Town, St. Andrew this morning. They have been identified as 36-year-old Damar Francis and 25-year-old Robert Clark. Reports of that shortly after 9 a.m. explosions were heard coming from Payton's Place in August Town by residents. When the shooting ended, the men were found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds. Police were summoned and the men taken to the hospital where they were pronounced dead. Member of Parliament for Eastern St. Andrew, Fayval Williams, in speaking with our news team shortly after the shooting incident, said that the record shows that the August Town community recorded 9 murders on average each year since 2009, except for 2016, expressing the damage this is doing to families.
It is extremely sad to see the continuation of violence in August Town. This is a community, if you look at the records going back to 2009, on average, every year except for 2016, this community has experienced some 9 murders in any year on average. That is not a good situation for women and children and the elderly who live here, for school children who have to go to school, for persons who have to wake up and go to work. On top of the killings are the shootings that happen at any hour of the day or night. It just seems that these men are boys who walk around with these high-powered guns. They have no regard. They will take their revenge whenever, whatever time of the day or night, whatever location. There have been situations where it's happened while kids are going to school in the morning. It's been midday, it's been in the afternoon, it's been late at night. It doesn't matter. They seem to think that they can do what they want to do without any thought of the law whatsoever.
Ms. Williams also added that August Town is one of 20 communities that has come to the attention of security forces in a serious way.
August Town has come to the attention. It's among those 20 communities now that has come to the attention in a serious way of the security forces. So that I am hoping that shortly we can hear what it is that the security forces is thinking about the community of August Town and what they will be doing, because I can tell you the law-abiding citizens of August Town want peace. They long for it. They want sustainable peace, because this is a community that is so close to the university. when violence happens, students don't stay because it interrupts their study at night to be hearing gunshots, and they are fearful as they have to walk on the streets to get to and from their classes. We are catching some. The persons are coming forward and giving information, but it requires greater confidence in terms of when they give information that it'll be held in a certain manner. But to be honest, there is still fear on the part of the residents, fear of the gunmen themselves as to what they would do if they hear.
Last week, a 44-year-old disabled woman, Susan Bogle, was shot dead, reportedly during a run-and-gun battle between gunmen and members of a joint military police patrol in the Bright Hill community in Augusttown. Reporting for Mello TV News, I'm Brianna Chambers.
Thank you, Brianna. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Andrew Holness earlier today visited the family of Susan Bogle, the disabled woman that was killed during a joint military police operation at her home in the Augusttown community in St. Andrew last week. Prime Minister Holness, in addressing the family of Ms. Bogle, said that police killings of Jamaicans is a major part of the mistrust that citizens face.
Jamaica has been struggling for decades, since the 1980s, with extrajudicial killings and questionable killings by our security forces. It is a major part of the mistrust that citizens have of the state. In fact, whilst it is good in a democracy to have a healthy distrust of the state, cynicism and utter disbelief is also dangerous. And we are at the point in our society where we are in the danger zone. And the 2007 Labour Party government worked through, under former Prime Minister Golding, to have Indicom established to finally address this great social injustice issue, where people who live in poor circumstances are treated in a way by our security forces that would not respect their humanity or have regard for their life. And it took a while for the society and our systems to come to accept that if the state takes a life, then that must go through a very high process of investigation. Because it should never be that the state takes a life. The state is given a certain authority to serve and protect, and that must be the ultimate of the state. If the state is acting contrary to that, then that must be investigated.
Prime Minister Holness reassured the family that the head of the Jamaica Constabulary and Defense Forces, along with the government, are in agreement that the JCF's and JDF's duties are to serve and protect the rights of every citizen of this country.
I'm here today to say to you that my own belief is that from my interaction and the policy directions that we have given, the leadership of the JCF and the JDF is on the same page where we are about their officers and their other agents within their respective forces follow the policy of the government, which is first and foremost to respect, serve, and protect the rights of the citizens. It is a difficult task when you're policing in an environment where people have guns, illegal guns. People are not afraid to shoot at you. As I stand here, just further up the road, there's a double murder. So Jamaica is in a for me, it's very worrying. It's a very complex situation, very worrying situation, and we have to manage it very carefully. Because even though the state is changing to address the social justice issues. I mean, so my intervention here today, as I said, is not to make any determination, any judgment on how it happened, but to reassure you that the process that is in place will come to justice.
The Prime Minister, during his visit with Ms. Bogle's family, announced that he will ensure that the house Ms. Bogle occupied before her death will be rebuilt due to the poor structure. Also, her son, Omari Stevens, is set to receive a monthly salary for the duration of 1 year.
But as far as I can intervene to deal with this, and what I have done today is to speak to the NHD, to say to them that there is a case to make about having some repairs done, significant repairs, because I don't think you can, I think this needs to be demolished and rebuilt.
Absolutely.
So I have spoken to them and they have agreed that both through their staff welfare and through other resources that they will deal with this situation. The other thing is that I am personally touched by your story. When I called you and spoke to you on the phone, I was very impressed with how well you were able to articulate the situation, by your reasonableness. I was very touched as well by the hurt that you conveyed. And the family members don't have a chance to vent. They don't get a chance to talk to a figure like me or go through a process of catharsis where they confront the problem and then they reach a resolution and they put it behind them. They hold on to it and they are bent on revenge. And so you kill my friend, I am going to kill your friend, you kill my brother, and it starts that cycle all over. And I'm confident that, and so I thought that this was a positive for Jamaica, that we need to identify a positive figure, someone who has suffered loss, but who is looking to make better, rather than to make the situation worse.
Most definitely.
Now, Ms. Bogle's son, Omari, in response to the Prime Minister's visit and offers, expressed deep gratitude.
And the Member of Parliament in general have been extremely supportive, and we appreciate everything that you guys have been doing for us. I mean, it's a trying time, and as you rightfully said, we're just seeking justice on behalf that things like this doesn't repeat itself, right? And with your reassurance, I can attest to that we are grateful.
Still making news tonight, the People's National Party, PNP, says they are joining with the citizens of the world who have been expressing their revulsion and abhorrence at the killing of George Floyd by police officers in the state of Minnesota in the United States. The PNP says it will continue to fight to protect the rights of everyone, regardless of race, color, religion, language, or creed. The party's General Secretary, Julian Robinson, says the party stands in solidarity with the increased number of peaceful protesters around the world, but especially those in cities throughout the United States proclaiming that Black Lives Matter in support of the movement to end the racial discrimination. Mr. Robinson says many Jamaicans have made the United States their home, and it is apparent from some of the images seen on television and posts on social media that many of these citizens have joined the protesters in the various cities in expressing their disapproval of the continuing racial discrimination and excessive use of force towards members of the Black community by law enforcement. The PNP extends condolences on behalf of the party and Jamaicans to George Floyd's family and friends. And those were some of the stories making news. I'll return with other updates as the Jamaica Progressive Party has applied to the Electoral Commission of Jamaica to be registered as Jamaica's fourth political party. We'll now take a break and then join Christopher Scott with sports.
Coronavirus is in Jamaica, and I know you feel scared and worried. But you can't let COVID-19 divide us. Coronavirus infects all kinds of people. It doesn't discriminate. So why should you? When someone coughs or sneezes or shows signs of the virus, tell them to call 888-1-LOVE immediately. And remember, stay 3 feet away, but don't attack or disrespect them, because we're all in this thing together. Come on, Jamaica, cut the hate and don't discriminate. Let us stand together and fight COVID-19 as one family, one nation.